Hello, and a very warm welcome to Cultural Communication Confidence with me, Victoria Reynoldson. And welcome back to this third part in the mini series that we're doing right now around communicating for your job search and job hunting. So, we started off in week 1 where we talked about strategies for CV and resume success. Last week, we talked about first impressions in networking, how to stand out in the way you introduce yourself. And if you haven't listened to those episodes, feel free to go back and listen to them to help you with your knowledge. And then in this episode, we're going to be really focusing in on this idea of outreach. So career outreach, crafting compelling messages that are cold messages. And I know this is an area that I get asked about because people recognize that they can enhance their career search by connecting with the right people, by setting up conversations that might lead them to their ideal job. But the reality is that sometimes this kind of messaging can feel uncomfortable. Let's be honest. The idea of messaging somebody that we're not connected to, asking them for their help, asking for their time to meet us and give us advice, this can feel not great. And particularly if we think about it as outreach or cold messaging. This is often the wording, the language of sales, and it might feel not so great to you that you're selling yourself in this way. So how do we reframe it? Well, a really great way to reframe it is to think about it as an opportunity to connect with somebody, to have a great conversation that helps give you some fresh insights along the journey towards finding that ideal role. Let's be clear, we're not asking people directly for jobs. That's not the nature of this. But what we're trying to do is build up a network of people, just as you are doing probably in your networking strategies and attending live and virtual events. But doing it in a space like LinkedIn is a really great way to meet people who can give you that advice, those tips to help you along the way. So how do we do it? How do we do it without taking some template message and copying and pasting it and making it all feel deeply uncomfortable? Well, I'm going to share with you some tips here today. And I also want you to think about it that your goal is this connection, and that ideally what you're trying to get out of reaching out to people is to have a bit of time with them, 15-20 minutes to get their information and their insights. Okay, so let's start that if you are doing this on LinkedIn, then I highly recommend that you make sure before you start crafting any messages that your LinkedIn profile is fully up to date. Now, hopefully that's the case if you're job searching already, but just make sure you cast an eye, look at it with fresh eyes, and ensure that you've got everything there. Up-to-date photo of you that genuinely looks like you. You might think about the cover image. You want to make sure your headline is simple to the point. Your about section is fully up to date, as well as your experiences. And ideally, if possible, you want to be occasionally posting and sharing on LinkedIn, even if that's resharing posts with your own point of view, or even kind of adding your own perspective. It just shows that you're engaged and active on the platform. So if you have that, fantastic. Now we can get into the messaging part. So first moving on from that, you want to think about this, that it's a personal message. Again, no copying and pasting, please. So research the person, understand who are they, where have they worked, what are they interested in, what do they post about, and make it as personal as possible, the message that you write. it's quite good in the early part of the message that you state what the connection is. Ideally, that would be something like the fact you have people in common. Perhaps you have a connection through education, that you are alumni of the same institutions. It might be that you have common interest areas, and it's fantastic if you can comment on something they're writing about in LinkedIn. So maybe they are sharing posts about certain topics that you are interested in. So find that connection and mention that. Then remember that you're asking for insight and advice, not for a job. So ideally, you want to frame that as a question and make it quite specific. So something like, do you have 20 minutes to spend with me to share more about your career path or how you reached your current role? So keep it really simple. From there, you can also define your interest narrowly and broadly. Now, this is a technique which is quite helpful. So it means that you have more chance that the person is going to say yes rather than say, no, I can't help you with that. So, for example, you might say specifically, I'm really interested to understand more about your company and what it's currently focusing on. And more broadly, I'm interested in trends in the future and how this might impact the industry. So there you go. You have a specific area and you have a broad area. And this helps the person to say yes, because there is something there for them to comment on. Now, there are mistakes that come up, mistakes that people sometimes make with crafting this message. Sometimes they make it too long. So I would advise you, ideally, you want to stick to about 75 words with this message. Sometimes they just copy and paste. So that's always very obvious. So try to make it as personal as possible and make particularly that section where you're focusing on what connects you to be really personal to them, as well as what you're specifically and broadly interested in. Don't apologize. This is one that sometimes comes up where a message is sent which says, sorry to bother you, or, sorry, I don't mean to disturb you. Don't do that. Actually, that again puts you on a sort of lower setting in terms of power with the person and doesn't kick off the relationship, the connection in the right way. What else? I'm having a look at my notes here. Actually, this is an interesting one. Sometimes I get sent invitations to connect without a message. Now, there are different points of view on this, but my personal point of view is that is a missed opportunity. A missed opportunity to really explain yourself, to frame why you want to connect. And I think it's actually also perhaps a little bit not in the right spirit, because you're not opening up the conversation. And then finally, the final mistake I sometimes see is that people do not keep track. So they don't keep track of the people they're contacting. They're not following up potentially on their messages, and they're not following up when people respond. Remember, if somebody responds to you, accepts your connection request, make sure that you're responding to them within 24 hours and getting that meeting in the calendar as quickly as possible. So there you go. This particular episode was a shorter one today, but I hope it's helpful and helps you to reframe this idea of moving away from outreach and cold messaging being about selling yourself to this idea of making a connection with somebody, thinking about what you're requesting is a conversation, perhaps only 15 or 20 minutes long, but that will help you along your journey to the next job, rather than it being directly asking for a job. Now, if you have any questions on this, I would love to know. If you want to share your draft message with me, outreach message, then I'd be very happy to have a look at this for you. Again, you can send that to me via my LinkedIn Messenger, or you can send it to me via my contact pages in the links below. And let me ask you, what part of your message do you need to craft more carefully? Which areas do you need to develop to make it sound more connective to the person you're writing to? I would love to know. And if this episode has been helpful to you, please feel free to share it with somebody else. Thank you so much for joining me here today on Cultural Communication Confidence, and I very much look forward to seeing you next time.